Disclaimer, this is going to sound like pure hype, and if I didn't already know the actual science that serves as the basis for these claims, I would probably be skeptical myself. That said, 30 years of research and countless numbers of peer-reviewed studies later, psychologists say gratitude may very well be the most important virtue a human can have. But it isn't just psychologists that are making this claim. For example, Cicero says gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. Seneca the Younger said, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." Aesop said, "Gratitude is the sign of noble souls." And G.K. Chesterton said, "I would maintain that thanks are the highest form of thought, and that gratitude is happiness doubled by wonder." On the other side of the coin, ingratitude is thoroughly lambasted. Immanuel Kant called ingratitude the essence of vileness. Max Lucado has called it the original sin. Bernard of Clairvaux said ingratitude is the soul's enemy. Shakespeare called it monstrous. And for Ignatius, ingratitude was, quote, the most abominable of sins. And of course, the Bible has a ton to say about gratitude, but we're going to save that for another podcast. For now, let's look at the science. In 1988, psychologist, author, and UC-Davis Professor Robert Emmons was among a small group of scientists invited to attend a conference on what at the time were deemed the classical sources of human strength: wisdom, hope, love, spirituality, humility, and gratitude. Now, each scientist was given the charge of presenting the known body of knowledge on his or her topic, and then developing a research agenda for the future. Emmons' first choice was humility. Of course, it was taken, as was every other topic, except gratitude, and that's the topic that he was assigned to do. It quickly turned into an all-consuming passion that has now defined Emmons' career and turned him into the world's foremost authority on the subject. Not only that, but it caused an explosion of research from all around the world, giving gratitude the current reputation that I mentioned earlier. Emmons says, when we're grateful, you're actually going through two processes, two steps of information processing, as it were. First, it's an affirmation of goodness. We affirm that there are good things in the world, gifts and benefits that we've received. Now, this doesn't mean that life is perfect, and it doesn't ignore all the complaints and the burdens and the hassles, but when we look at life as a whole, gratitude encourages us to identify some amount of goodness in our life. The second part of gratitude is figuring out where all of that goodness comes from. We recognize the sources of this goodness as being outside of ourselves. It didn't come from anything we necessarily did, and if it did, we would just wind up taking pride for it. We can appreciate the positive traits in ourselves, of course, but as Emmons says, gratitude involves a sort of humble dependence on others. We acknowledge that other people, or even God himself, is responsible, whether in full or in part, for us having those blessings and that goodness in our lives. I wish that I had time to even just briefly mention all the research that has been done, but this episode would be an hour long if I did that. So instead, let me just rattle off an abbreviated list of some of the many powerful benefits of gratitude. Research has shown that gratitude makes us happier by triggering positive feedback loops. Gratitude actively opposes toxic, negative emotions such as envy or resentment or regret, emotions that can actually destroy our happiness. Gratitude makes us more resilient. It makes us more likely to recall memories in a positive light, even neutral or negative memories. And gratitude has been shown in multiple studies to make people kinder and more friendly. We're just getting started, though. According to research, gratitude opens the door to more relationships, leaving us less lonely and isolated. Grateful people are more likely to behave in forgiving, pro-social ways, even when others behave less kindly. Gratitude even helps your marriage Research says that gratitude improves your sleep quality by reducing the time required to fall asleep and increasing your sleep duration. Gratitude keeps you away from the doctor. Researchers analyzed 137 different studies and found that those who engage in gratitude practices have been shown to feel less pain, go to the doctor less often, have lower blood pressure, and are less likely to develop a mental disorder. That's amazing. Not surprisingly, grateful people are also shown to be more likely to take care of their health. Research says that gratitude makes us less self-centered. Unfortunately, we're all prone to what's called a self-serving bias. In other words, when good things happen to us, we say it's because of something we did. But when bad things happen, we blame it on other people or circumstances. Gratitude really goes against the self-serving bias because when we're grateful, we willingly give appropriate credit to others for their help, their support, and their input. And one more for you. Gratitude fights entitlement. This just world hypothesis says that we get what we deserve in life, but bad things happen to good people and vice versa. With gratitude comes the realization that far more often than not, we get more than we deserve. This really goes against a message that we get a lot today, that we deserve the good fortune that comes our way, that we're somehow entitled to it. If you deserve everything, if you're entitled to everything, it makes it a whole lot harder for you to be grateful for anything. In the world of work, research has even found that gratitude improves management, networking, goal achievement, decision-making, and our productivity. So why so many positive changes? Well, it's because gratitude actually rewires our brains, kickstarting the production of dopamine and serotonin. Like antidepressants, these feel-good neurotransmitters activate the bliss centers of the brain, creating the feelings of happiness and contentment. As I mentioned earlier, research suggests that the regular practice of gratitude will actually train your brain, your prefrontal cortex specifically, to better appreciate and retain positive experiences and thoughts to deflect the negative ones. In fact, even months after a simple, short gratitude writing task, people's brains are still wired to feel extra thankful. You could even think of your brain as having a sort of gratitude muscle that can be exercised and strengthened. And here's the really crazy part. We've only really started to study gratitude scientifically in the past 30 years. So if gratitude is so amazing, how can we become more grateful in how we live? Here's a few simple ways that psychologists say we can deliberately practice and strengthen our gratitude muscle. Think about what you have rather than dwelling on what you don't. That just makes sense. Or tell the people in your life something you appreciate about them. Keep a daily gratitude journal about things, people, or situations for which you're grateful. And then practice looking for the good even in negative situations. You can write a gratitude letter to someone or do the count your blessings exercise. In other words, at the end of the day, write down 3 things for which you're grateful. Practice saying thank you in a real and meaningful way and be specific. You can even write thank you notes. Years ago, my family and I started writing thank you notes to people in November instead of sending Christmas cards. We called it the Say Thanks campaign. I think it's probably time to revisit that idea. I'd love it if you joined me on that. There's even a Facebook page. Just search for Say Thanks campaign, and I'll do my best to dust off the cobwebs before you get there. One last observation about gratitude. While the list of ideas I just gave you is fantastic, Dr. Emmons has issued a bit of cautionary advice. He says that after years of research and thought and experimentation, he's had a bit of an aha moment himself. He says that when we try to become more grateful, there's this tendency to make it all about us. I will become more grateful. I will keep a gratitude journal. I will do this or that. So it becomes just another self-improvement project in a sense. He says that's the exact wrong way to think concerning gratitude. He says instead that our focus should be on recognizing the good that comes to us from outside ourselves, in other words, from God or from others, receiving that good with genuine humility, and then looking for ways to reciprocate that good to others, even if it's just with a sincere thank you. That way, we're focusing our attention outward instead of inward, which is exactly what gratitude requires, because gratitude's not about us. It's about the other people, or even God Himself doing things for us, maybe even that we don't deserve. Remember, a better mind always leads to a better life.